Hey, I'm going to get started. It's 2:01 and I want to value people's time. I know people will still be coming in as we go along, but I'm excited to talk to you about CVs from the perspective of this theme from inventory to impact, making your CV clear, compelling, and connected. So I'm going to try my best to get as much covered as possible in our time because there is one more workshop I want you to be able to get to later on today. So I'm going to move through the content and hopefully we'll have time for questions. I think we will. Just to introduce myself briefly, my name is Sharon Fleshman. I'm on staff here at Career Services, working with graduate students and postdocs. And so I want to really bring home the concept of from inventory to impact. So if you look at this picture, um, I guess I'm thinking about how overwhelming it might be to see all of it. It looks like a produce section in a grocery store, but there's a lot here. And it may remind you of all the things that you're going to have in your CV, just a lot of information. Um, then if you bring it in a little closer, what happens to these ingredients when they're prepared, right? There's a little bit of a closer honing in on something here. And then even more so, what is the impact of the food, right? So once the food is prepared or made available, there's impact. There's people gathering around a table to eat it. So there's just different perspectives. And so the purpose of this session is not so much to go line by line with your CV, but it's more to think about strategic ways to tweak it so that you can answer the question. So if I asked you the question, if a search committee skimmed your CV for 30 to 60 seconds, what would you want them to notice? And feel free to put that in the chat along with your program. That'd be interesting to know too, but what do you want them to notice? And how can you strategically design your CV accordingly? So that's what we're going to look at today. Now, these are the typical CV sections. And again, like I said, we're not going to go line by line, but we're going just to give you a sense of what you probably already have on your CV to affirm that. What I'm really going to do is touch on the different concepts, clear, right, compelling, and connected, and then talk about some case studies that may give some ideas of how to really be strategic about your CV. So clear. What I mean by clear is making sure your CV is one, not crowded. Again, there's a lot you can put on your CV, right? But how can you format it so that it's not crowded and also so it looks consistent, that the eye sort of can follow it well, that it's easy to read so that the person looking at your CV, again, the search committees are looking at a lot of CVs, right? So you want to make it easy for them to find what you want them to find quickly. So that's what I mean by clear. Compelling. So the CV, how can you be strategic in how you sequence the information? So for instance, if you're looking at an R1 institution, you're going to lead likely with your publications and research experience. But if it's more of a liberal arts college that also values teaching, you may tweak that a little bit. So how do you sequence the order of the sections? The other thing is sort of how do you describe your experience, the most relevant. Now, you're not for all of your experience, but the most relevant experience in a concise way, but enough context and impact to make it interesting. Connected. So make sure the CV also sort of hints to the other documents. You've seen a number of workshops, or hopefully you'll, if you haven't seen them, you'll be able to look at the recording regarding the cover letter, research statement, the teaching philosophy. So this often is the first document. The CV is going to be the first document, maybe the cover letter, but the CV is going to be read. So how can that be an app, sort of an appetizer to get more info, right? To hint, to get the person thinking, oh, I'd love to read. Now I really want to read the research statement or the teaching statement. Then there needs to be an alignment with the job itself. So we're going to look at some job descriptions to illustrate that, and also departmental and university priorities. In the interest of time, I'll be focusing really on the job description, but you certainly want to explore websites, articles about the institution you're interested in or the department, what they're doing now to show some alignment in your interest and theirs. So these are just 3 case studies I'm going to look at. To confess, I did curate a number of job descriptions, but the CVs are actually sample CVs that we have that were anonymized. So I happen to sort of curate in a way that hopefully matches and illustrates what I'm trying to say. So I'll confess that. So the first one is for this assistant professor of biology, right? And you can see certain, and you can go on and on with this, but I'm in the interest of time, I'm going to be brief. You've noticed the cell biology emphasis. There's also team taught, right? This is Swarthmore, right? So you have a liberal arts college. You notice the emphasis on research and teaching, right? They're emphasizing that there is funding to support research, but teaching is also there, right? So research and teaching. Notice how those are paired up and how that may speak to what you want to emphasize. Then we see that Swarthmore notes that it's a selective liberal arts college. We most know about that. Combining academic rigor with social responsibility. Okay. That's something you want to keep in mind, a commitment to diversity. Then the candidates will be committed to combining teaching and research, right? So again, that teaching and research pair is back, right? So that's important. Contributing to a curriculum. Maintaining an active research program. So research is so important, but that engages motivated undergraduates, right? So see that pairing, the emphasis on teaching and research and mentoring that comes out there. So it's interesting. So this is a postdoc sample CV, and you'll be able to access, I'm only showing parts of them, but in our CV guide, you will be able to access the whole sample. So this one, it's interesting, a postdoc, biology postdoc, leads really after their education, of course, leads with the teaching experience, and that you would expect maybe they with a research experience. So in this case, they really emphasized, again, team taught course. Well, in the job description, team teaching was emphasized. You see the emphasis also on the types of teaching modalities. Of course, the traditional lectures, but also discussion-based lectures and problem-based learning, right? So there's an emphasis on that, right? Also, additional training on teaching. So this person really takes teaching seriously. They attended a curriculum workshop, a teaching seminar, and a number of teaching conferences. So they're leading with that. Now, that's not to say they don't have good research experience, but they want to emphasize that they can pair that with solid teaching and engaging teaching. So this person focused on microbiology for their research, but they're showing this connection with biology, right? So you can see that. So I'm just emphasizing some of this, and you can probably, the people who are in biology programs could probably go further in terms of making connections. And then the publications, there's cell entry, there's different elements there that they're leading with their peer-reviewed publications once they have their publications. So they do a nice job sort of distinguishing those publications. Selected invited presentations. So that implies they were selected. They were invited to make a presentation. So it speaks to likely their presentation skills and their teaching skills because they were invited to make these presentations. One is at an international conference and one is a local university. And then again, the diversity committee chair. Again, Swarthmore values diversity. So that's going to stand out. A volunteer science mentor. Again, the idea of mentorship, the importance of that. Having research that engages undergraduates, right? And teaching undergraduates, which goes along with mentorship. So that's the first one. So the second case study is this position assistant professor in communication. And by the way, these are actually there now. So if anyone's interested in those, feel free to look, because these are actually things I found very recently. This is the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, and they are looking for, and generally what you'll find in your CV, a teaching, research, and service sections, right? So it's pretty holistic job description there. Then you see a focus on mass communication. And what's interesting though is they want professional experience. So they have the requirement, certainly the basics, but then they're interested in someone that has professional experience. Depending on your discipline and what you're looking at, professional experience may be valued. And particularly public relations experience. So this CV, I also want to note just the when I say clear, just the look of it. So it's real. So if someone were skimming, often people skim documents, at least in our context, they're going to skim the left side. And so right away you see education very clearly. You see the bold with the school name. So it's really easy to read nicely. With your contact information, it's fine to put the school address. Often now people don't really need to put their own personal street address for privacy purposes. Sometimes people just put the city and state. That's fine. You see the cell number, email, website, that makes sense. But see how clean it looks, right? It just has a nice clean look. Same thing with the publication. So you see right away on the left, the type of publication is very clear: books, peer-reviewed articles, book chapters. And the first thing you see that this person co-edited a volume with mass communication in the title. Well, that's the emphasis of the role, right? They want someone that can speak to mass communication. Peer-reviewed articles right after that, right? Very easy to see. And certainly the citation style will vary based on the discipline, but a very consistent look, very easy to read. Now, with the research, what's nice about this is it, again, hones in on the methodologies, the type of research skills, it's a qualitative study, in-depth interviews, textual analyses. So there's a sense of, okay, this is what a person is already raring to do in terms of methods. So that's something to think about as well. And then the professional experience, again, it can vary what may be seen as critical to put or how much information you want to put. But in this case, they wanted someone that had some experience in public relations. Well, this person had a job where they implemented city campaigns, composed a wide range of public relations materials. Now, the job description also mentions wanting someone on that had agency experience with public relations. So maybe this isn't necessarily agency experience, but maybe they engage the public relations agency. So if I were talking to them, I might inquire about that. Well, can you speak to working with someone from an agency or hiring someone, right? To tweak this a bit. But then again, it's showing, okay, under that preferred section, they also have professional experience in public relations. Okay, and the final, this is a really interesting role here. So it's a tenure track position, and they have varying options. So it could be from assistant, associate, or full professor. And it's the School of Human Ecology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's a really interesting initiative. It's very interdisciplinary. So you see just the way they want funded research support, provide students with high impact learning opportunities. So again, it's sort of this research and teaching together, cross unit collaborations. Imagine it. So you can tell by the way it's worded that there's an emphasis on interdisciplinary engagement, community engagement, because you're connecting communities of researchers, students, and stakeholders, right? So then it's just promoting equity and justice, right? So this particular position has various initiatives under it. So the sample CV I'm going to mention would really align with this last one, Rise, Thrive, based on determinants of health and linking early and midlife exposures with later life health and health disparities. So keep that in mind. And so they also, you have the typical information, leading a research program, attracting funding, engaging students, teaching, and the human development and family studies is going to be the discipline for this postdoc CV that you'll see. Okay, so here's another case. Again, very nice format, clear format. Similarly, you have the address of the site that the person did their postdoc at, the phone number, email, and website, right? Um, then again, the education very clearly now on the left aligned is the degree itself, but it's well formatted. And again, if someone's scanning, they'll hit the PhD, they can move over to Penn State, it's just very easy to read. Human development and family studies is very easy to see. So they already are seeing a match. So the research interest is another good section to have on your CV. It really can help you show the alignment with the priorities of faculty that you're interested in connecting with and the department. So in this case, the lifestyle and growth patterns during infancy and childhood that are predictive of the obesity and metabolic syndrome risk during adolescence and adulthood, it kind of goes back to, I'll go back here, this determinants of health in linking early and midlife exposures with later life health and health disparities. So this what happened earlier, how does that connect with, infancy and childhood, lifestyle patterns, how does that influence situations from adolescence and adulthood, right? So there's a connection there. So again, this is a nice way to do the research interest. It's relative, it has some good detail, but not too long. It's bulleted through. I've seen some research interest sections that are briefer. They just have a brief list of topics. That's fine as well. And again, the research experience, again, easy to see. I'm a big fan of bullets. I think it's just, they're readable, easy to skim through. Very good overview of the study itself and what came out of the study. Conference abstracts, peer-reviewed manuscripts, mentoring, right? So this type of position seems it's interdisciplinary, community engagement, the idea that they mentored people is important, and then particular skill sets that they got from this that can be transferred to this position. Another situation where you see the research experience kind of capturing a wide variety of research skills. A needs assessment. A needs assessment, again, implies hands-on in the community. You have to sort of engage people to get that sense of needs assessment. Qualitative interviews, so they have the ability to engage in that sense. But in the next position, they've also shown some quantitative skills. So data collection and NIH funded, right? A longitudinal study. So these types of experiences they can see. Engaging girls and their families, quantitative analytical skills, right? So these are the things that can be helpful to show the wide variety of skills that you have. And then here is an example of getting a $3,000 grant. And so that's notable, mostly because it was from outside the school. So this person was able to get a $3,000 grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Health. So just again, keep in mind that I've given those sample CVs and just pulled from these things, but just some reminders. You definitely want to start with a master CV to pull from so that you have everything. So you just feel like, okay, let me just put everything in this one document, and then I can start pulling from them and tailoring them for different types of roles. You want to be clear on formatting protocols, like I mentioned earlier, for the citations for your specific discipline, right? So, of course, you're going to get feedback from your advisor and mentors once you polish a draft to show them. And then here are some resources that we have available. So one resource is the CV guide that we have on our website. And so as you see here, there are all kinds of resources for application materials. And there's the cover letter, research statement, and teaching philosophy. And there were workshops on that earlier today, but you can access those to get a lot more detail. There's also a great video on the academic CV on the PhD career training platform, and you have access to that right away through your pen key. So you can get that. And it just takes you through the entire process. So it goes line by line, this section, that section, that section. Very comprehensive look at CV writing. As you can see on there as well, there's similar workshops for the cover letter, teaching statement, teaching portfolio, and research statement. So that's something you can look at as well. Now, the Imagine PhD is a particular resource for humanities and social sciences disciplines. So there is a similar analysis as I went through today. There's an analyzed job description you see, a tailored CV, and they divide it up into research intensive faculty and teaching intensive faculty. So that's helpful as well. So just wanted to let you know there is a program on applying for postdocs later today. And there are a number of sessions next week that you'll be in attending as well. And of course, as you develop your CV, you'll want to have, if you want to have an advising appointment to receive feedback, you can do so.